Nice. The main singer was the lady or the dog?
My wife.
Okay.
The Bal Bachchan Gajra. My son's mother.
Please repeat. Narayanam Namaskritya
Narayanam Namaskritya
Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Devim Saraswati Vyasam
Tato
Jayavadirayat.
Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam,
Srimad Bhagavatam,
which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead.
One should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of God.
Narayan. Unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being. To Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning. And unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Shrinvatam Svakata Krishna Punyashravana Kirtana Vidyantasto Yogadrani Vidunoti Saritsatam. Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma super soul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart. Of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Nasta Treshu Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. My regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by the rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, Chapter 7, Text 38. Please repeat.
You gonna have Kadwaya?
Huh?
Kadwaya?
Oh, you mean the, sure, yeah, that'd be great.
What, are you going to do the word for word first? Or then how do we do that?
However y'all want to do it.
Just do it.
We're going to time because that way everybody
But then it gets connected, so it's not like it's the word.
Yeah, especially this verse.
Yeah.
It really is a lot to this verse. It's like,
So this ain't each word.
No, I think I should just try to do it.
okay.
Ya leshvapi satamna hare kata kastashu. Let me try that again. Ya leshvapi satamna hare katashu.
Ya leshvapi satamna hare katashu. Pasandino Dvijajana Vrishala Nivideva
Syaha Swadhava Sariti Smagiro Nayatra
Swaha Swada Vasaviti Smagirona Yantra
Shashta Bhavishyati Kaler Bhagavam Yugante
Sasta Bhavishyati Kale Bhagavan Yuganti
Yaryalayesh Satam Nahare Katasyu
Yaharadeshu Apisatam Nahare Katasyu
Pashandino Dvijajana Rishala Nrideva
Prasandino Vijajana Vrishala Nideva
Swaha Swadhava Shariti Smagiro Nayatra
Swaha Swada Vasariti Smagiro Nayatra
Rasta Bhavishyati Kaler Bhagavan Yugante
Swasta Bhavishyati Kale Bhagavan Yujante
Yaryalayesh Satam Nahare Katashu
Yaharadeshu Apisatam Nahare Katashu
Pashandino Dvijajana Vrishala Nrideva
Pasandino Vijajana Vrishala Nideva
Swaha Swadhava Sariti Smagiro Nayatra
Swaha Swada Vasaviti Smagiro Nayatra
Rasta Bhavishyati Kaler Bhagavan Yugante
Swasta Bhavishyati Kale Bhagavan Yugante Yahi Aleshu Apisatam Nahare Katashu
Yaryalayesh Nahare Katasyu
Pasandino Dvijajana Vrishala Nirdeva
Pashandino Dvijajana Vrishala Nrideva
Swaha Swada Vasat Iti Smagiro Nat Yatra
Swaha Swadhava Sariti Smagiro Nayatra
Shasta Bhavishyati Kale Bhagavan Yugante
Shasta Bhavishyati Kaler Bhagavan Yugante Yaryalayesh Satam Nahare Katasyu
Yaharadeshu Apisatam Nahare Katasyu
Pashandino Dvijajana Vrishala Nrideva
Pasandino Vijajana Vrishala Nideva
Swaha Swadhava Shariti Smagiro Nayatra
Swaha Swada Vasaviti Smagiro Nayatra
Shasta Bhavishyati Kale Bhagavan Yugante
Shasta Bhavishyati Kale Bhagavan Yugante
Yaharadeshu Apisatam Nahare Katashu
Yaharadeshu Apisatam Nahare Katashu
Pasandino Dvijajana Vrishala Nideva
Pasandino Dvijajana Vrishala Nideva
Swaha Swadhava Sariti Smagiro Nayatra
Swaha Swada Vasaviti Smagiro Nayatra
Sasta Bhavishyati Kale Bhagavan Yugante
Shasta Bhavishyati Kale Bhagavan Yugante
Yarhi,
Yarhi,
when it happens.
when it happens.
Aleshu,
Aleshu,
in the residence of.
in the residence of.
Api,
Api,
even.
even.
Satam,
Satam,
civilized gentlemen.
civilized gentlemen.
Na, no. Harer,
Hare,
of the personality of Godhead.
Personality of God.
Kataha,
Taha,
topics.
Topics.
Suyu,
you
will take place.
will take place.
Pasandinaha,
Shandinaha,
atheist.
atheist.
Dvija Janaha,
Vijatanaha,
persons declaring themselves to be the higher three classes.
persons declaring to be the higher three classes.
Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas.
Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas.
Vrishala, the
Shala,
lower class.
the lower class.
The lower class Shudras.
The lower class Shudras.
Nirdevaha,
Devaha,
ministers of the government.
ministers of the government.
Svaha,
Swaha,
hymns to perform sacrifices.
hymns to perform sacrifices.
Svadha,
Swaha,
the ingredients to perform sacrifices.
ingredients to perform sacrifices.
Vasat, the altar of sacrifice.
The altar of sacrifice.
Iti,
Iti,
all these. Sma,
Sma,
shall.
shall.
Yurha,
Ilaha,
words.
words.
Na,
Na,
never.
never.
Yatra, anywhere.
Anywhere.
Shasta,
Shasta,
the chastiser.
the chastiser.
Adishyati,
Adishyati,
will appear. Kale,
Hare,
of the Kali age.
of the Kali age.
Bhagavan,
Bhagavan,
the personality of Godhead.
the personality of Godhead.
Yuga ante,
Ante,
at the end of.
at the end of.
Please repeat. Translation. Thereafter, at the end of Kali Yuga,
Thereafter, at the end of Kali Yuga,
when there exists no topics
when there exists no topics
on the subject of God,
on the subject of God,
even at the residences of the so-called saints
even at the residence of the so-called saints
and respectable gentlemen
and respectable gentlemen
of the three higher castes,
of the three higher castes,
and when the power of government
and when the power of government
is transferred to the hands of ministers
is transferred to the hands of ministers,
elected from the low-born Shudra class
elected from the low-born Shudra class,
or those less than them,
or those less than them,
and when nothing is known of the techniques of sacrifice,
when nothing is known of the techniques of sacrifice,
even by word,
even by word,
at that time,
at that time,
the Lord will appear as the supreme chastiser.
the Lord will appear as the supreme chastiser.
I just was curious that supreme chastiser should have been in capital letters. I don't know. I'm just a neophyte, but I was just curious. Okay, I'll read that translation again. Thereafter, at the end of Kali Yuga, when there exists no topics on the subject of God, even at the residences of so-called saints and respectable gentlemen of the three higher castes, and when the power of government is transferred to the hands of ministers elected from the low-born Shudra class or those less than them, and when nothing is known of the techniques of sacrifice, even by word, at that time the Lord will appear as the supreme chastiser. So much of that already seems to be in vogue, you know. Purport. Anybody else want to read that again? Translation.
No.
Purport by His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
The symptoms of the worst conditions of the material world at the last stage of this age, called Kali Yuga, are stated herein. Then some substance of such conditions is godlessness. Even the so-called saints and higher castes of the social orders, generally known as the Dvija Janas or the twice born, will become atheists. As such, all of them will practically forget even the holy name of the Lord, want to speak of his activities. The higher caste of society, namely the intelligent class of men guiding the destinies of the social orders, the administrative class of men guiding the law and order of the society, and the productive class of men guiding the economic development of the society, must all be properly well versed in knowledge of the Supreme Lord, knowing factually his name, quality, pastimes, entourage, paraphernalia, and personalities. The saints in the higher caste or orders of society are judged by their proportion of knowledge in the science of God, or the tattva jnana, and not by any kind of birthright or bodily designations. Such designations, without any knowledge of the science of God and practical knowledge of devotional service, are considered to be all decorations of dead bodies. And when there is too much inflation of these decorated dead bodies in society, there develop so many anomalies in the progressive, peaceful life of the human being. Because of the lack of training or culture in the upper section of the social orders, they are no more to be designated as the Dvija-janas, or the twice-born. The significance of being twice-born has been explained in many places in these great literatures, and again, one is reminded herewith that birth, executed by the sex life of the father and the mother, is called animal birth. But such animal birth and the progress of life on the animal principles of eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating, without any scientific culture of spiritual life, is called the Shudra life, or to be more explicit, the uncultured life of the lower class of men. It is stated herein that the governmental power of society in the Kali Yuga will be passed over to the uncultured, godless, laborer classes of men, and thus the Nirdevas, or the ministers of the government, will be the Rishalas, or the uncultured lower classes of men of society. No one can expect any peace and prosperity in a human society full of uncultured lower classes of men. The symptoms of such uncultured social animals are already in vogue, and it is in the duty of the leaders of men to take note of it and try to reform the social order by introducing the principles of twice-born men trained in the science of God consciousness. This can be done by expanding the culture of Srimad Bhagavatam all over the world. In the degraded condition of human society, the Lord incarnates as the Kalki avatar and kills all the demoniac without mercy. It was interesting how Kalki wasn't mentioned in the translation, and all the way through this long purport was not mentioned until the very last sentence. How about that? So that's very interesting, especially for devotees who love to perform sankirtan and preaching. The symptoms of such uncultured social animals are already in vogue, and it is the duty of the leaders of men to take note of it and try to reform the social order by introducing the principles of twice-born men trained in the science of God consciousness. This can be done by expanding the culture of Srimad Bhagavatam all over the world. In the degraded condition of human society, the Lord incarnates as the Kalki avatar and kills all the demoniac without mercy. So the translation again. Thereafter, at the end of the Kali Yuga, when there exists no topics on the subject of God, even at the residences of so-called saints and respectable gentlemen of the three higher castes, and when the power of government is transferred to the hands of ministers elected from the low-born Shudra class, or those less than them, and when nothing is known of the techniques of sacrifice, even by word, at that time the Lord will appear as the supreme chastiser. So, it's your opinion also. It just seems like now they're not really Vaishyas. They're not really Vaishyas anyway. It seems like the Vaishyas are pretty much running, at least America. Would you say that? Vaishyas.
Prabhupada.
They're not qualified as Vaishyas.
Vaishya types.
Vaishya types, Vaishya class. They're not qualified as true Vaishyas, of course. So the more qualified you are to be able to run a business, then supposedly the more qualified you are to run, the country. If you're a really good businessman.
Money talks.
Yeah, money talks.
Intelligence.
Yeah. If you know how to manipulate money, then you know how to run a country. But actually, that's not how it is with the Vedic culture. I mean, it's Krishna comes first, and then everything else automatically, so nicely falls naturally into place, not artificially. And it's with Krishna, there's less anxiety, of course. Without Krishna, all that's left is anxiety. Okay, reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 8, text number 17 in the purport. The cycle of Satya is characterized by virtue, wisdom, and religion. There being practically no ignorance and vice, and the yuga lasts 1,728,000 years. In the Treta Yuga, vice is introduced, and this yuga lasts 1,296,000 years. In the Dwapara Yuga, there is an even greater decline of virtue and religion, vice increasing, and this yuga lasts 864,000 years. And finally, in Kali Yuga, the yuga we have now been experiencing over the past 5,000 years, there is an abundance of strife, ignorance, irreligion, and vice, true virtue being practically non-existent. And this yuga lasts 432,000 years. In Kali Yuga, vice increases to such a point that at the termination of the yuga, the Supreme Lord himself appears as the Kalki avatar, vanquishes the demons, saves his devotees, and commences another Satya Yuga. Then the process is set rolling again. These 4 yugas, rotating 1,000 times, comprise one day of Brahma, the Creator God, and the same number comprise one night. Brahma lives 100 of such years and then dies. These 100 years are by earth calculations total 311 trillion and 40 million earth years. By these calculations, the life of Brahma seems fantastic and interminable. But from the viewpoint of eternity, it is but a lightning flash. In the causal ocean, there are innumerable Brahmas rising and disappearing like bubbles in the Atlantic. Brahma and his creation are all part of the material universe, and therefore they are in constant flux. In the material universe, not even Brahma is free from the process of birth, old age, disease, and death. Brahma, however, is directly engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord in the management of the universe. Therefore, he at once attains liberation. Elevated sannyasis are promoted to Brahma's particular planet, Brahmaloka, which is the highest planet in the material universe, and which survives all the heavenly planets in the upper strata of the material planetary system. But in due course, Brahma and all inhabitants of Brahmaloka are subject to death, according to the law of material nature. So it says that at the end of Kali Yuga, basically they're all atheists, and the Lord will come and I believe he travels at the speed of mind with his sword, and he just slays everybody, right? Isn't that how? I couldn't find it, but that's what I read at least.
There's always a picture of him on the white horse.
Yeah. So, I'm reading from the Hidden Glory of India under the topic of what is a devotee. Because obviously at the end of Kali Yuga, there won't be any devotees of Krishna in the process, of devotional service. It sounds so terrible. One who is engages in bhakti yoga, loving devotional service to the Supreme Krishna or Vishnu, is known as a bhakta, a devotee, or a Vaishnava. In contrast to the path of karma yoga, which enables the body, and jnana yoga, which enables the mind, the way of bhakti encompasses these two paths, engaging the heart as well. The Vaishnava scriptures say that if a person lives the life of a bhakta in a previous lifetime, he must have already achieved the perfection of all other methods of yoga. According to the most liberal definition, to be a bhakta does not require even conscious awareness of a relationship with the Supreme. Of course, this is a liberal definition. Every living entity, every living thing, by virtue of its simple existence as part parcel of God, is a bhakta. Thus, Vaishnava scriptures assert that every living soul is by constitution a servant of Krishna. By this definition, every living thing, plant, animal, and so on, is a devotee. Or a more usual definition is found in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Lord Chaitanya himself says, quote, anyone who appreciates the chanting of the holy name of the Lord is to be counted among the bhaktas. End quote. So let me read that again. A more usual definition is found in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Lord Chaitanya himself says, anyone who appreciates the chanting of the holy name of the Lord is to be counted among the bhaktas. Here a simple appreciation is required. Practitioners of our faiths, of other faiths, to the degree they are in touch with the essence of their tradition and appreciate glorification of God, are bhaktas. Such a non-sectarian definition of bhakta can also be seen in the comment of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the great Vaishnava teacher who, upon entering a Christian church, remarked, quote, how nicely my Lord is being worshipped here. The highest level of bhakta how nicely my Lord is being worshipped here, end quote. The highest level of bhakta, in the most demanding sense of the term, is the pure devotee. One is considered a pure bhakta when spontaneous love of God arises in his heart. Prior to this, the bhakta may engage in the practices of bhakti out of a sense of duty, but real loving service, the hallmark of true bhakti, may remain far away. Association with a pure bhakta brings one into association with Krishna. I love how that this month, Lord Chaitanya, he really looks 7 foot 3 inches tall when he's in front of that mango tree, the pastime, and he's plucking those mangoes. He looks so beautiful in this month's painting on the calendar, and he's sharing the mangoes with the devotees. So that's what I wanted to talk about was chanting, appreciating chanting, which obviously will not be appreciated at the end of Kali Yuga. Krishna says, I dwell not in the spiritual kingdom, nor in the hearts of yogis, where my devotees are chanting there, O Narada, stand high from the Pana Prana. Krishna says, I dwell not in the spiritual kingdom, nor in the hearts of yogis, where my devotees are chanting there, O Narada, stand high. Vaishnava texts state that in much the same way that one could awaken a person who is sleeping by making a sound or calling out his name, man can awaken himself from his conditioned materialistic slumber by calling out the name of God. In fact, the world's major religious traditions concur that it is by chanting the name of God that one attains enlightenment and freedom from materialistic conditioning. Muhammad counseled, quote, Glorify the name of your Lord, the Most High. That's from the Quran, 87:2. St. Paul said, quote, everyone who calls upon the name of the Lord will be saved, end quote. Romans 10:13. Buddha declared, quote, all who sincerely call upon my name will come to me after death, and I will take them to paradise. Vows of Amida Buddha 18. King David preached, from the rising of the sun to the setting, the name of the Lord is to be praised. Psalms 113:3. And the Vaishnava scriptures repeatedly assert, quote, chant the holy name, chant the holy name, chant the holy name of the Lord. In this age of quarrel, there is no other way, no other way, no other way to attain spiritual enlightenment. Brihad Naradiya Purana 5.8.126. Praise of the holy name of God is found throughout the literature of the Vaishnavas. Quote, oh, how glorious are they whose tongues are chanting your holy name. Even if originally low-born dog-eaters, they are to be considered worshipable. To have reached the point of chanting the Lord's name, they must have executed various austerities and Vedic sacrifices and achieved all the good qualities of true Aryans. If they are chanting your holy name, they must have bathed in all holy rivers, studied the Vedas, and fulfilled all prescribed duties. Srimad Bhagavatam 3:33-7. Quote, the holy name of Krishna is the spiritually blissful giver of all benedictions, for it is Krishna himself, the reservoir of pleasure. Krishna's name is complete in itself and is the essential form of all spiritual relationships. It is not a material name under any condition, and it is no less powerful than Krishna himself. This name is not tinged by any aspect of material nature, because it is identical with Krishna. Bhagavatam Purana 3:21. Because chanting the name of God is so much emphasized in Vaishnava texts, practitioners focus on chanting as a central devotional method. Thus, deep meditation and great emotion accompany japa, the soft chanting, kirtan, the loud chanting, and sankirtan, the congregational chanting. When perfected, the chanting leads to awareness of God's absolute nature, i.e., that there is no difference between Him, the Nami, the named one, and Mama, the name. Absorption in the absolute nature of Krishna and His name is the heart of Vaishnava mysticism. I repeat that again. Absorption in the absolute nature of Krishna and His name is the heart of Vaishnava mysticism. Leading to love of God. Okay, that's the end of that part. So here's something from Norman Hine, Professor Emeritus at Yale University, has witnessed enthusiastic Gaudiya Vaishnava Kirtan, and in writing about it, he captures its most emotional components. Quote, in the singing of verse like these, each line separately is incanted by the leader first, and the whole assembly repeats each line after him, one by one. As the verse is gone through again and again, the leader steps up the tempo. When the speed of utterance approaches the utmost possible, the whole group in unison begins to shout the lines, at the same time beating out the rhythm with sharply timed clapping hands. The singers begin to sway and let themselves go to in ungoverned gestures. Faces flush from the line of instrumental accompaniments. The bell-like peal of small brass cymbals swells up with the rising shouting and pierces through it. The whole process approaches a crashing, breathtaking crescendo. The point of explosion is reached, eyes flash, mouths drop open, and tremor runs through the entire assembly. The power, the presence has been felt.
What's
The
this?
power, the presence has been felt. All capital letters.
What's this? Where's this from?
This one's the chanting from the Hidden Glory of India.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's describing Vaishnav chanting?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a famous quote from Observer.
Yeah.
Oh.
He really described it very nicely, it seems like. All glories to Mother Ekadasi. Anybody have any comments or questions? It's Amalaki Ekadasi.
You're going to be like?
I could read some of it, I mean, you know.
Yeah, I do have a comment. It's, saying that at the end of Kali Yuga, there's no more devotees. I believe it. But right now, it feels like the world is going to hell, and there's still devotees here. And it's hard to believe. It's this whole inconceivable thing that the planet can, right now, it just seems that all the world's resources are being taken away or polluted, or there's some imbalance. It's amazing that even with devotees on the planet, it's like that. To speak of how hellish it can be. And what if every Kali Yuga is just as bad as this? I'm sure it gets worse, but then, on top of that, all of the chemicals, all of the nastiness and everything gets dissolved, and then out of that is created a new Satya Yuga. For me, it's just inconceivable, because we're worried so much about right now, how things are going.
Yeah, well, I think also that, Prabhupada mentions this, the twilight of Kali Yuga. It's also the twilight of the golden age within Kali Yuga. So, and that will increase. But there's obviously, when we talk about how this is going to be a golden period, right now it's hard to see how that's going to happen, just like it was hard to see that Prabhupada could come here and establish a worldwide. So there's a lot of things that are yet to be revealed. I think we're in a phase in the beginning, and that's, and Prabhupada made, those kinds of statements. So, we don't know what's in front of us. We know that this is going to be. At the end of the class yesterday, what was Kacha was saying, there was a quote about, Prabhupada said that Mayapur, that would be the capital of the world.
But the quote was that Maya would be the capital of the movement, and
Of the
it would be a
movement,
country in itself,
In a country in itself.
like the Vatican. That's what I
Yes,
was
but
trying to
it's
say.
from the letters, apparently.
Yeah.
And the temple presidents would be like ambassadors.
Ambassadors.
Yeah,
from
from the country
embassies,
of
yeah.
Mayapur, the nation of Mayapur.
So, we don't know what kind of international, either, natural disasters or wars, and how that will then influence society. But Prabhupada said during those times, the preaching is increased. People become, when they're in a state of distress, they turn to God.
Yeah. Right now, there's just so many distractions, unlimited distractions.
And I'm not being a doomsdayer. I'm not saying that's what we wish for. It could happen.
But
it's
Well, I
possible.
mean, look over. What was the conversation last night I had with Fed? I said, he was talking about different things, environment and different things that are going on, and I said, it just seems like a coincidence that I have no car right now. You have no car right now. My son has no car right now, and it's just a point in time when there could be, I don't want to say pandemic, but there's no cure for what's going on out there right now.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes, Prabhuji?
Appropriate comment, because you were talking about the chanting of the holy name, the absolute nature, the power, purity, chanting the holy name. The ninth canto of the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada talks about Ram Raj. There was no death for someone who didn't want it, no bereavement, no mental disturbances, no natural disturbances, no excessive heat or cold. So, in that purport, Prabhupada mentions that in this age of Kali, we can have that same atmosphere as Ram Raj if we chant the holy name without offense. So many places where Prabhupada said Vaikuntha can be established by, the propagation and preaching and the chanting of the holy name. Even in the age of Kali, you can create the same wonderful atmosphere as Ram Raj.
Does anybody know why they don't let us go in and at least be part of the prison system? Because we could really, the holy name really satiates and makes people happy, you know what I mean? I don't know, I just don't understand why we're not. We would love to do that, free.
They probably would do that.
Part of what?
The prison system, you know what I mean?
The devotees do preach in the prison.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
prisons.
It'd be nice to have more kirtan, you know what I mean? Like a regular once a week maybe, type thing where it's a big assembly, you know what I mean? Of course, they have to be able to be controlled, so that's the tough part.
It's a chaplain in charge of every prison system, at least in New Orleans. I used to be part of a church called the Church of the Risen Sun or something in New Orleans, and they had once a month that we would go.
But we should be in charge of all the parliaments and congresses around the world.
Yeah. Was it Bhaktivinoda Thakur that said that? Glory be the day that the magistrate has tilak on every court, on the forehead, every court of the land.
Yeah,
Was that Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that?
Yeah.
It was?
probably. I don't know. It sounds
Well,
like
Prabhupada, when he saw a picture of Bhagavatam, when he's running for mayor, and he had a suit and tie on, and he had kunti mala, he had tilak, and he had his japa bag. His hair was going up, he had a little seeker in the back. Prabhupada said, this is what I've always wanted. American Vaishnavas in American dress preaching.
Wow.
And he said a lot of things about that time, but he also said it was a very contaminated environment, and you have to be careful. And it was back and forth like that, but it's the same things what you were mentioning about the
I looked up, we were talking about Vaishyas, the qualification of the Vaishyas, and I looked up in 7th canto, Yudhisthira asked Narada Muni, again, about his duties and about Varnashram. So Narada Muni is explaining this, and this is chapter 11, text 23. This is about the Vaishyas. Vaishyas, being always devoted to the demigods, the spiritual master, and the Supreme Lord Vishnu, endeavoring for advancement in religious principles, economic development, and sense gratification, dharma, artha, and karma, believing in the words of the spiritual master of Scripture, and always endeavoring with expertise in earning money. These are the symptoms of the Vaishya. So you see, a Vaishya is not as high as a Kshatriya or a Brahmana. They have a little mixture going on, but they're Vaishyas. So, they're devotees, but a little bit materialistic.
No,
So-
but
That's what it says. So like in the verse today, the purport, it says the proportionate realization of Krishna, wasn't it? Proportionate transcendental knowledge. So I think it's interesting if we say what's a qualification of a Vaishya. They have to be, even though they are materialistically endeavoring, they have to have this Vaishnava quality also.
The saints and higher caste orders of society are judged by their proportion of knowledge and the science of God, on top again, and not by any kind of birthright or bodily designations.
Yeah, that one. So how they get to be in these classifications is by the proportion. So the Vaishyas have a proportion of knowledge of God, and they're focused on it, but they're also materialistic in some way.
Yeah.
But I don't think that the point is that there was a time not that long ago when our government wasn't run by Vaishyas. Right now it is, but there was a time. I remember back around the 80s they started talking about we need good businessmen to run this government. There used to be statesmen, and so But it's become more and more that we want the businessmen running things, and we see what they do. They just
Really?
The reason
set
is
things up for themselves.
they appear to be successful.
It's
So we
not
think,
good
oh,
for
we need
themselves.
somebody
they
who knows how to have success, but they don't know anything about the higher levels.
No.
So that's the problem. When the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas get confused and can't be
See,
successful.
Vaishnavas put Krishna first.
Yeah, but the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas, even in the ISKCON society, and when they get confused, they feel weak and they're not doing so much good. They look at the Vaishyas in the society and they say, "You guys look successful. I'll let you advise me." And that's how it goes lower, because they don't know how they're not having success, and they think the Vaishyas are successful. The Vaishyas are only successful in business.
Yeah. Well, I know a little bit more about Elon Musk now. He doesn't worry about patents. Believe it or not, he does not worry about
Shares,
patents.
oh,
Well, yeah, he does, but he doesn't worry about them because he says that, you see, he hires engineers, groups of engineers, and he expects them to be coming up with new ideas all the time. So he expects to be 3 years ahead of any competition. They have to innovate, and if they don't, he says, then we fire them.
wow.
Yeah, so he's pretty tough. But so that's somebody, when you mentioned somebody who's successful, it's just one person I was thinking of, you know.
He's still a Vaishya, but he's a little bit more, apparently spiritually conscious in some ways than the average, like certain.
Oh, really?
Vaishyas.
Is he?
I don't think, because he's like, at least he's socially conscious about in a moral way. It seems like Elon Musk.
Elon
Oh,
Musk,
no,
yeah.
Isn't he?
yeah,
I mean, it seems like it.
But you know what?
But not
It does.
necessarily God
It
conscious.
says in the one of the verses actually says that there will be so-called.
So-called Vaishyas, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah, not
We
really.
gotta
This
be
is why I
careful
read
of that,
this, because you see the Vaishyas we have nowadays are not like this. You know, and they're not even devoted to the demigods, all the spiritual masters.
It's an agrarian culture that we're talking about, you know. I mean, it's just so different, you know. Everything in these big cities, I mean, that's not an agrarian culture at all.
No.
It's more passion, completely in ignorance, you know.
Vaishyas are more
It's
passion.
nice to have you back again, Manaji.
Vaishyas are more passion, ignorance, Shudras are ignorance. Kshatriyas are passion, and the Brahmanas are goodness, and Vaishyas are more passion and ignorance. So, you know, we see that, I guess they are, but they're not up to this quality of devoted to God and the spiritual master. Well, some of them have some Christian idea of God, I guess, but
You know, the gold they used to have
Jewish.
way back in Vedic times, obviously was 100% gold. It wasn't graded like 24 karat or whatever, 14 karat, whatever. You know, that to me sounds like cheating, you know. It was obviously just pure gold, I guess, you know.
And they used to throw the gold plates away like.
Yeah, that's the thing I was just thinking about. I was thinking, how is that even possible? Wouldn't
So much.
the poor people come along and take those plates as soon as they threw them down?
But for one thing, they're probably too far away from everything, and that for another thing is, maybe it was sacred and nobody did.
Well, it's a pastime of the Lord, obviously, too, so, you know. So that's, you know, interesting. Glories to Simul devotees, entire Parampara, Shishi Gornitai, Shishi Radhavada Kanta Ki Jai, Kosha Prabhupada Ki Jai, Glories Bhagavad Gita Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.
Oh, the verse that Srimad Prabhu was referring to,
Yeah.
in the 9th chapter.
9th canto?
Oh, 9th canto, that's right. It was, 9:10:53.
9, 10,
Yeah, in the
53.
purport, it was about the symptoms of the Ramachandra, when no one died, even if they.
Oh,
Can you text me that one?
Sure. But Prabhupada, the interesting thing is Prabhupada said in the purport that we could have this. A similar situation could be introduced immediately, even in this age called Kali, the worst of all ages. And he said, it is said that Kala, or Nama Rupa, Krishna Avatar, this is where he said by chanting the holy name, you can have that. Prabhupada said, you can have that situation. If we
So it's a
purely
similar
change.
situation, it doesn't just say an identical situation.
No, just similar.
Yeah.
So, I guess that is encouraging us to chant, keep chanting. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.